Welcome to Dr. Lee Unplugged, real insights from the cutting edge. This is a stripped down video where I share behind the scenes insights as a scientist and as a doctor on different health and wellness topics. It's raw, direct, unscripted, no sugarcoating, just real talk and real science. And today we're going to talk about your lungs and foods for lung health. Now, food as medicine is making headlines everywhere, and it's important to know that whatever we're actually putting into our body can affect our lungs and the rest of our respiratory tract, which actually starts from our nose and our mouth, goes all the way down to our sinuses, and then goes down the tubes, the bronchial, and all the way down to our lungs. And when we're talking about the health of our lungs, we're not just talking about the absence of disease. Our lungs have to protect themselves to stay healthy using these hardwired health defense systems. These same health defense systems protect our health in every part of our body, but in the lung, let me just tell you what they are and what do they do. All right, so the first health defense is called angiogenesis. It's my area that I study, angio, blood vessel, genesis, how our body grows and protects blood vessels. Now, this is a 60,000 mile channel throughout all of our bodies. But from our lungs perspective, we need a good blood flow because it's our blood that carries the oxygen that we breathe to the rest of our body. And it's our blood in our lungs that actually expel carbon dioxide so that we can breathe in and breathe out. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. Number two, second health defense in the lung is our regenerative system. We have stem cells in our lungs as well as elsewhere in our body, but in our lungs, our stem cells can help to repair our lungs. Why do we need them repaired? Well, because you're breathing in crap all the time, right? Think about that. You're painting your room, you're breathing those fumes. You're painting your fingernails or removing fingernail polish, that acetone you're breathing in. That's all damaging to the cells of your lungs, and your lungs have to fix that. And the good news is that regeneration as a health defense can help to repair your lungs from exposures. The third thing is the gut microbiome. Now, it turns out our gut microbiome, which is actually not in our lungs, it's actually in our gut, also affects inflammation throughout our body. A good, healthy gut microbiome lowers inflammation, including in the lung, which is really important. And the lung itself has its own microbiome, and we're just beginning to discover this. This is kind of new areas of science and medicine, but I think in the coming years, we're going to be learning a lot more about the lung microbiome. Now, the fourth health defense system is our DNA protection system. Now, DNA, you will know, their DNA is our genetic code, but guess what? In addition to being the code that makes proteins for healthy living, it turns out that our DNA is hardwired to protect itself from damage. So, for example, when you have damaged DNA, you have a mutation. When you have a mutation, that's a setup for cancer. All right. So our DNA knows how to fix itself if it's damaged. We can also block damage coming in like a bulletproof vest. And our DNA is protected with these caps called telomeres that are on the ends of the DNA, so that as we age, the telomeres, the protective caps, start to shorten. But we can actually slow that process down. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, because that's actually good for slowing down cellular aging. And the fifth and final health defense system I'm going to talk about in your lung is your immune system. Now, your immune system knows how to mount inflammation when there is damage, trauma, injury, but it also knows how to turn down inflammation when we don't want inflammation anymore. Inflammation is kind of a first responder cleanup crew when there's debris and garbage, and it's kind of like the EMTs that show up to the site of an accident. They're there immediately to kind of assess and take care of things. That's what inflammation does. Chronic inflammation is really bad because that means that you're having this cleanup crew there all the time, splashing all the cleaning agents all around. You don't want that. That can actually be damaging, which is why chronic inflammation is so bad. But our immune system naturally knows how to turn that down, turn down the volume, okay? The other thing, of course, with our immune system is that it raises our immune protection to defend against viruses and bacteria. Now, in the lung, that's especially important. In fact, all of our airways. You know why? If you go into an airplane, a train, a bus, okay, inside a shopping mall, you're breathing in all these particles that could be toxic, but they can also contain lots of bacteria and viruses and fungi. And think about that. In the wintertime, when you're in a crowded place and you have somebody sneezing and coughing, what do you think you're doing? You're breathing in those bacteria and viruses, but not everybody gets sick. And the reason we don't all get sick is because our lungs' immune function protects us against getting sick, all right? These are the systems that keep your lung healthy. Now, we're going to talk about foods that can actually help to enhance the protection of our lung for lung health. But before that, I talked about those. Let me share some cool facts that you might not know about the lung. So, first of all, your lung is actually in your chest, right? Your heart's kind of in the middle, slightly to the left, all right? And it turns out your lungs are like big vacuum cleaner bags that are lined with air pockets. Now, these air pockets have a name. They're called alveoli, and what they look like is literally they're like little soap bubbles that are all inside the lung. Soap bubbles, or maybe like bubble wrap. All those little air pockets in there. That's what it kind of looks like. All right. Now, these little bubbles in the lung, the alveoli, provide surface area for gas exchange. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, let me explain it to you. What gases are being exchanged in your lungs? Well, when we breathe, oxygen comes in through our nose, all right, and our mouth. When we breathe through our mouths, they go right down into our lungs. They go into the air sac, and that's in the air sac is where the oxygen goes into our bloodstream, and then our bloodstream carries it to the rest of our body, all right? At the same time, those air sacs are where carbon dioxide that comes from our blood circulates into our lungs, and the CO2, the carbon dioxide, expelled. So we breathe out CO2 at the same time we're breathing in oxygen. So this is what is going on. This gas exchange, all right, is happening every single time that we're breathing. Now, you know how many times we inhale and exhale every day? About 22,000 times. That's a lot of inhale exhalation. And that means that the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide is happening at a pretty amazing pace at these air bubbles, the alveoli in your lungs. Now, this is important. That air surface area of the alveoli is huge. It's a big area. In fact, the surface area of your alveoli is about 70 square meters. Now, if you're like me, you're like, what does that mean? I have no idea what 70 square meters are. So let me bring it down to earth for you. 70 square meters is about the size of a tennis court, all right? That means that if you were to flatten out all those bubbles in your lungs that for gas exchange, you'd actually form a shape and a size about like a tennis court. Now, how many of these air sacs do you actually think you have in your lungs? Take a guess. Random guess. More than 1 million? Yep. More than 10 million? Yes. In fact, we have somewhere between 300 million and 500 million of these air sacs in our lungs, all right? Which is pretty amazing when you think about how much surface area that is, the tennis court, and the 22,000 times that we're breathing in and breathing out.
Hey there, are you ready to use food to improve your health? I do cover a lot in my YouTube videos, but there's only so much time to dive deep into how to use food as medicine. That's why I created my Eat to Beat Disease course. In my course, I walk you through how to use everyday foods that you can find in your grocery store to boost your body's health defenses. This is all based on my research, and everything is rooted in science. And I've made it super easy to follow with practical everyday tips. Whether you're trying to prevent disease or just want to optimize your health for longevity, my Eat to Beat Disease course gives you all the tools to make it real and to help you get lasting changes that will help you live longer and live better. To learn more, click the link below or scan the QR code on the screen. I can't wait to get started together in my course. Now, back to the video.
Now, here's another fact. Even though we've got 2 lungs, you can actually function if you miss a lung, if you lose a lung, even on 1 lung, your body can run. Not quite as well. You're not going to be running any marathons. You're not going to be doing a lot of scuba diving or free diving, all right? But 1 lung can take up the job of 2 lungs if you're happening to miss one of the lungs. And that can actually happen. Sometimes people have a pneumonectomy, which is removing a lung, or a lobectomy, removing part of the lung. Okay, another fact. Your lung also has its own healthy bacteria. I mentioned that briefly. It's the lung microbiome. This is like a new area. We're still discovering what that all means. But just like the gut microbiome, this lung microbiome is probably pretty darn important. And so we need to actually do more research to figure that out. I'm an honest scientist, so when I don't know something, I'm gonna tell you that we don't know. So we don't really understand what the lung microbiome does, but it's probably pretty important. Now, I also mentioned that your lungs have stem cells, and our lungs can regenerate. All right, I think I told you can actually repair and replace the lining on the inside. But guess what? If you were to snip off the top of your lung, that tip will grow right back. The stem cells will regenerate your lung. All right. So, pretty important organ, right? It's got a lot of built-in mechanisms to be able to do its job, but there's things that can damage our lungs, all right? Now, lung disease is one of the big causes of chronic disease in modern societies, right? It comes like after heart disease and cancer and diabetes. Lung disease is way up there. Now, some of the things that can damage your lung, pollution, all right? Air pollution. And we know that our world is getting more and more polluted. In fact, what was pretty amazing was that right at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, when everything shut down, there was actually a brief moment in modern history where the air actually cleaned up because we weren't driving, we weren't running factories. And it just goes to show you how much, like the everyday nature of society puts stuff in the air. So pollution can damage your lung. Toxic exposures can damage your lung too. I mentioned this, right? Like if you work in a factory and you're exposed to solvents and fumes, all right, that can actually have serious consequences for your lungs. But even at home, you might not realize this, but putting on that fingernail polish, taking off the fingernail polish, that's a toxic exposure, all right? That's acetone. You're breathing it right in. Right? Normally we're painting it like this. It's a really, really risky behavior, actually, to be doing that. So if you notice, if you go to a nail salon, the people that are actually helping to paint your nails, they'll often wear a mask, all right? By the way, the other reason they wear a mask, they don't want to be breathing up the dust from your fingernails when they're doing your manicure as well. So even dust, fine dust particles can actually do that, right? And speaking of fine particles, soot and ash in the air from wildfires, for example, but even campfires and fireplaces, all right? And even the barbecue grill. When you're breathing that stuff in, the nice, delicious smell from the barbecue, if you're actually the person doing the grilling and you're up close in that and that smoke is coming into your face, all right, you're breathing in a lot of soot and ash and all the toxins that are in there. And of course, smoking, all right? Smoking, we know, is not good for you. We know smoking causes lung disease, emphysema, lung cancer, cigarettes, cigars, pipes, pot, marijuana, vaping, all right? All these things are introducing toxins inside our lungs. Our lungs will try to protect themselves against all those insults, but, people who are smoking or vaping, they're doing it a lot, and despite its best efforts, your lungs probably not going to be able to fully protect itself against those insults. Okay, now, talked a little bit about the lung, talked a little bit about the things that can hurt the lung. So what can we do using food as medicine to keep our lungs healthy? That's the area I work on, right? How do we use food as medicine? Now, our food is important because it can enhance our body's health defenses, including our lungs. All right, so I'm going to give you 3 simple food tips for better lung health. It's all based on research, human research. Okay, so ready? First food, green tea. All right, I love green tea. I drink green tea every single day. Green tea, Camellia sinensis, okay, has got polyphenols that come out from the leaves when you're steeping tea leaves, right? That's what makes the tea green. And those polyphenols can activate your lungs and your whole body's health defense systems. Now, what's important is that the polyphenols in green tea can lower inflammation. They're directly anti-inflammatory, including in your airways. All right. So if you have some inflammation, I mean, think about asthma. That's a lung reaction to inflammation and bronchospasm. Tea can actually relax that because there's actually some muscle relaxants in tea, theaflavins. All right. But the other thing is it can lower inflammation itself, which could be important if you're sick. Get a virus infection, try sipping some green tea. It'll actually make your airways feel a little bit better. Polyphenols in green tea can also block cancer growth, okay, including lung cancer growth. This has been studied in the laboratory. And the same polyphenols in the tea can actually stimulate lung regeneration for healing, all right? So lower the inflammation, block the cancer, help the lung heal itself when you need to, all right? And a study of more than 13,000 people in Korea show that those people who drank 2 or more cups of green tea a day were 50% less likely to develop emphysema or COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. You've probably heard about that. That's like a chronic scarring of the lung where your lung function keeps on getting worse and worse. Basically in COPD, you know, those air bubbles we were talking about, they start to go away. You damage them and you can't regenerate them, and you have fewer and fewer and fewer of those air bubbles for gas exchange. So you never feel like you're getting quite enough oxygen. All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about green tea. I like to drink green tea every single day. My choice of green tea is to actually have loose leaf tea. This is, by the way, I picked this up from my parents and my relatives who come from Asia. You know, in Asia, they don't really use tea bags most of the time. They use tea pots to trap the tea leaves, but they're all loose leaf tea. That way you can control how much tea you actually put in there. All right. So if you get a tea ball, that will do it as well. All right. So I like loose leaf tea. If you just take a kind of like a small amount of loose leaf tea, put it into a mug, pour hot water on there, and then sit back. All right. Give it 3 to 5 minutes is my secret number that I use myself. That'll allow the hot water to saturate the tea leaves, and then the water, the polyphenols, will actually come out into the tea water to flavor the water, but then they're in there, and then when you sip it, you're getting all the benefits of the flavor, which I love, and the polyphenols, okay? I don't like to use tea bags. Number one, I don't want to have this thing like hanging around, but now we know that tea bags, many commercial tea bags, actually can shed microplastics. In fact, one study suggested that a single tea bag in a mug of tea can shed 1 billion microplastic particles into the tea. That's pretty scary, kind of disgusting. I wouldn't want that. Invisible, but then you're drinking the tea. It's got the good stuff in it for you, the polyphenols. But guess what? It's got bad stuff in there too that can cause inflammation in the body. Why would you want that? So I don't use tea bags. I think one of these days they're going to figure out how to make tea bags that don't shed microplastics. But in the meantime, loose leaf tea is a way to do it, or get a tea ball or steep your tea in a catch, something that will catch the tea leaves. And watch out for the cups that you're using to drink your tea. Right? Think about it. Plastic cups will shed microplastics. Styrofoam cups will shed microplastics. Have it in a glass, ceramic, the old school tea mug. That's a good way to actually go. All right. Now, what kind of tea? I like green tea. There's a lot of different kinds of green tea. Japanese green tea, sencha. Most people don't know this, but one of my favorites is jasmine tea. And what people don't know is that jasmine tea is basically Chinese green tea with jasmine flowers that are actually rolled up and mixed with the tea leaves. And now you get the floral jasmine scent from the flowers that combine with the polyphenols in the tea. It's very relaxing to me, and I love the flavor. So, you don't have to be stuck with just one type of tea. You can try different kinds of green tea. Now, if you want the most potent green tea when it comes to polyphenols, get matcha. Matcha is that kind of a super, super green, opaque tea. If you go to a Japanese restaurant, you sit at the sushi bar, you order green tea, they're probably going to give you matcha, all right? Matcha actually comes as a powder. It doesn't come as leaves. It's the whole tea leaf that actually gets the stems removed, and then the leaves are completely ground up into that powder. So you're getting every bit of the polyphenols, plus you're getting the dietary fiber that comes within the leaf itself. You're not steeping, you're just basically ingesting the leaf that's all been powdered up. Now that's good for the gut microbiome, which helps to lower inflammation, but now you get every bit of the polyphenols, all right? Recently, there's a whole other type of tea that isn't matcha, but it's powdered. These are powdered teas, and the way that they make these powdered teas, they come in these little paper sleeves, all right? These little tubes. You rip off the top, and you just pour tea powder into a cup, put hot water in it, and the whole thing dissolves. Now, how do they do this? Basically, at the tea factory, they're brewing huge amounts of tea. The way that it should be brewed, it's got all the polyphenols in it. Then they remove all the water. Okay, they dehydrate the tea. All right, in big vats, and what you're left with is this powder. This powder will instantly dissolve. So that's another way that I actually like it. It's very convenient. No muss, no fuss. It's a powder. All right, you don't have to stir anything. You don't have to wait. The whole thing, it will dissolve immediately into the water. All right. So, and by the way, powdered tea, matcha, you can actually use that for cooking as well. You don't have just to drink it in a mug. You want to bake some muffins with it, put in some cookies if you're a baker, or if you want to actually put it into a stew, that's an interesting way as well. And here's a creative idea for you. I bet you didn't think about this. What about putting some tea powder into a cup of coffee? Now, I talk about this now. Water, tea, and coffee are the holy trinity of beverages when it comes to health. All right. If you didn't drink anything else but water, tea, and coffee, you're actually going to be able to survive really, really well because of the polyphenols in the coffee, polyphenols in the tea. What about putting some powdered tea into coffee and see if you like that? All right. So again, lots of creative ways to actually use powdered tea and just dissolve the powder right into the cup. All right. You ready for the second food tip for lung health? Eat dietary fibers. Eat foods with high dietary fiber. Lots of dietary fibers, right? You can eat them in vegetables and beans. And here's the reason why. When you have foods, all right, like produce with dietary fiber, that helps to feed your gut microbiome. That's bacteria in your colon, about 39 trillion of them. And those bacteria, healthy gut bacteria, release, when they're well fed, they release something called short chain fatty acids. SCFA. Sometimes if you listen to health and wellness people talk, they'll call them SCAFAs, SCFAs. They're just the metabolites, the things that the bacteria produce once they're well fed. But the cool thing about short chain fatty acids or SCAFAs is they're powerfully anti-inflammatory. So you can actually lower inflammation everywhere in your body, including in your lung. Now, the other thing that fiber does is it stimulates the immune system, because your gut microbiome, when it's happy, helps to groom and activate your immune system. What does that do? That protects you against infections for things that you might be breathing in. So it enhances your protective immunity in your airways and in your lungs. Protects you against infection, all right? And in fact, a study of 1,921 people across the United States showed that those people who ate more dietary fiber, so fiber from their foods, mostly fruits and vegetables, had better lung function than those who didn't eat much fiber in their foods. All right. So let's talk about what those foods are that are good for lung health because they contain fiber. All right. Some of the top ones: lentils, chickpeas, black beans, okay, legumes. All right. So now this is, by the way, these are very commonly used in Mediterranean cooking. You can find type lentil Mediterranean or chickpea Mediterranean or black bean Mediterranean, and you'll find lots of recipes for them. They're really, really packed with dietary fiber, okay? Feeds the gut microbiome, lowers inflammation by helping the bacteria release short-chain fatty acids. What about some fruits? Well, raspberries. Pound for pound, raspberries, even though they're hollow and light, are packed with lots, like among all the berries, the most dietary fiber. Guava, also very good with dietary fiber, and mango as well. If you ever try to cut a mango, you'll see how much fiber is, even soft and delicious, with a lot of dietary fiber. Now, some veggies too are really good for dietary fiber. Artichoke, I love artichoke. Just not just the hearts, but also the meat on the end of the leaf. Brussels sprouts, for example, they have a lot of dietary fiber as well. Now, there are some foods that don't seem like they should have a lot of dietary fiber because they're soft and squishy, but they actually do have a lot of dietary fiber. So, what's an example of that? Avocado. Avocado is good for lung health because it's got a lot of dietary fiber to feed your gut microbiome. Another soft, squishy food, mushrooms, even the lowly white button mushroom. Think about that. The English breakfast, saute some mushrooms. I would do it with a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, maybe some shallots or a little bit of garlic or just olive oil. All right. Pinch of salt. Just slice them up. Good source of vitamin D as well. All right. Now, mushrooms, soft, kind of slippery, packed with dietary fiber. All right.
Hey there, check this out. I've got a resource on the 10 foods to improve your cholesterol, and it's free. Hey, not all cholesterol is created equal, so in this resource, I explain why maintaining a healthy balance of LDL, that's low-density lipoprotein, and HDL, high-density lipoprotein, is crucial for your cardiovascular health. And I tell you about the foods that you can add to your diet to help make this happen. My resource, it's yours right now for free in the caption below. All you have to do is click on the link below the video. And now, back to the other video.
What about some other foods that I enjoy that have fiber? I love pears, especially in the wintertime, when they come into season. Figs, especially dried figs, are very, very rich with dietary fiber. Another one that I will sometimes have, all right, popcorn. Popcorn actually is a good source of dietary fiber. Now, you don't want to be pouring sugar and all kinds of other things in your popcorn. My latest favorite little kind of culinary tip to make popcorn taste great, get rosemary. The herb rosemary, the spice, get it ground up really, really finely. Now, you can just get a pepper, a coffee grinder, and put rosemary in there, dried rosemary, and just really powderize it. If you sprinkle a little bit of rosemary, which has rosmarinic acid, by the way, which is good for brain health, puts you in a better mood, actually. Sprinkle a little bit of rosemary on popcorn. Man, that tastes really, really great. All right. Not what you would get at the movie theater. All right. So dietary fiber is the second one. Third one. What's the third food that we can use, food as medicine for good lung health? Well, this one nobody hates, and that's dark chocolate. All right, maybe a few people don't like dark chocolate, but most people love chocolate, all right? Now, here's the thing about chocolate. Chocolate is a confection, like the stuff you buy in a bar, all right, which is a candy, and it's got made in a factory, and it's got all kinds of other stuff in it you got to be careful about, including a lot of added sugar. But dark chocolate has more of the plant-based cacao. Now, cacao is a bean that comes off a tree, cacao tree, all right, and it's plant-based. So chocolate is actually originally made from it's originally a plant-based food. The darker the chocolate, the more the plant percentage is in there. And guess what cacao contains? A polyphenol called proanthocyanidin, all right? Proanthocyanidin actually is a powerful anti-inflammatory substance, good for lung health, and it also improves blood flow as well, and it also improves regeneration. So all these things we talked about that are actually good for protecting lung function and lung health, right? You want to have lower inflammation, you want to have better blood flow for gas exchange, and you want to be able to repair it with regeneration. Dark chocolate will do that. In fact, a study of 2,850 people in Europe showed that those people who consume the most flavonoid-containing foods, okay, now proanthocyanidin in chocolate is a flavonoid, all right? And so this study included people that ate a lot of chocolate, had superior lung function, better lung function, all right, than those people who didn't eat very many flavonoids, including the flavonoids come from chocolate. Now, remember, dark chocolate has higher levels of these polyphenols, the flavonoids, the proanthocyanidins, than milk chocolate does. Milk chocolate is basically some of the cacao, but then you add milk in it, all right? So what I tell people is that if you really want to use chocolate for health, and I also like the taste of dark chocolate, a little bit bitter, but you know what? Bitter can be better, and it's actually kind of maybe it's an acquired taste, but I like it a lot. But here, what number should you go for, right? You go to the grocery store and you look at, or chocolate store, and you'll see all these kinds. There's milk chocolate, there's 50%, 60%, 70%. What percent should you actually get? Well, it turns out that most of the studies show that if you get 80 to 85% or higher, dark chocolate, that's even better. So you get lots of these polyphenols, chocolate polyphenols. Dark chocolate also has a lot of dietary fiber. In fact, 85% dark chocolate, all right, has about 4 grams of dietary fiber per serving. That's about as much as a dried fig would actually have, right? But you didn't expect that, dark chocolate. So, but you also want to be careful about the amount of chocolate you have because, as I said, chocolate is a confection. It's made with sugar. There are other additives that are in there, emulsifiers, thickeners. And you always want to look at the ingredient label to make sure that whatever that factory put in there, the chocolate maker, you're comfortable with. Make sure there's no artificial preservatives and artificial sweeteners and artificial flavors and artificial colors, all those kinds of things. They wind up in candy. Like anything that's made in a factory can actually have that. So I always say, even for dark chocolate, please look at that ingredient label. That actually will, that's a tell. It gives it away whether or not it's going to be healthy for you or maybe not so healthy. Now, here's a practical tip. Dark chocolate, especially 85% chocolate, dark chocolate, pretty bitter. All right. And a lot of people are very sensitive to bitter foods. All right. But so here's my little hack on how to actually use bitter chocolate, dark chocolate, and make it more palatable. Guess what? Have a square or 2 or 3 of dark chocolate, 85% or higher, with a cup of coffee. What is chocolate plus coffee? That is mocha. All right. Tastes great. The coffee and the chocolate, they kind of play off each other. It's a really, really nice way to have dark chocolate. Little tip I'm sharing with you. Hopefully, if you don't already like dark chocolate or you're hesitant about the darkness of the chocolate, try it with some coffee. Now, I also know that some people actually have been asking me about, when I talk about chocolate, what about this idea that dark chocolate might have heavy metals like cadmium or lead or arsenic? Those are scary things to have in your chocolate. Well, it turns out that Publication Consumer Reports actually did do a survey of like 30 different types of dark chocolate and found that some of them had way high levels of heavy metals, like way higher than what's allowed. All right. So since that report came out some years ago, all right, I think a lot of the chocolate manufacturers scrambled to try to figure out how to get better chocolate. They have better processes. And so that's why I'm not calling out any particular brands right now, but you should look them up and always, do your own research on any kind of chocolate. Here's the thing you need to know about heavy metals, all right? They're not things that the farmers are pouring into the ground, but the volcanic soil that chocolate trees like to grow in, all right? They like to grow like in these side volcanic terrain, all right? It turns out, what do volcanoes do? They're bringing in magma and lava from the center of the earth. There's a lot of heavy metals in the earth itself. So this is not really thought to be factory spillover, like battery factories and stuff, just chucking their heavy metal waste, right onto the chocolate tree. Nope. It's actually stuff that's coming naturally from the ground. So here's a couple of things that are interesting for you to know. It turns out that chocolate that comes from cacao, the beans sourced from Central and South America, tend to have more heavy metals because the volcanic soil in the Central and South America tend to have more heavy metals. All right, you got to check the specific chocolate, but chocolate made with cacao sourced from West Africa, like Ghana. All right, that they produce chocolate as well, and chocolate from Asia. Not the most popular, common places to get their chocolate. They actually have less heavy metal because the soil, the ground there, doesn't actually have as much heavy metal as well. All right. So best solution is, in any event, do your research and eat chocolate in moderation, and you should be just fine. All right. I mean, anything we eat has some pluses and minuses, risks and benefits. You got to kind of weigh it yourself to figure out what's going to make the most sense for you. But when it comes to chocolate, especially because it's a confection, a candy, don't eat too much of it. All right. Here's a good one. Just take like 3 squares and nibble on those dark chocolate with a cup of coffee in the morning. That's a great way to actually have the mocha. I guess it would be like we'd call it the dissembled mocha. All right, that's it for today on Dr. Lee Unplugged. If you found this insightful, hit the like button, and of course, subscribe if you want more science-backed content from me. All right, and if you got any thoughts or questions, drop them into the comments. I'd love to hear from you. All right, and with that, I will see you at the next video. Hey, if you like that video, then you're gonna love this one. Check it out.